Hello and welcome to another episode of Wheel of Horror, the podcast where two lifelong childhood best friends spin a wheel every day leading up to Halloween. It chooses the horror film and they discuss it. Today we're talking about Leatherface, the Texas Chainsaw Massacre 3, which came out in 1990 and was directed by Jeff Burr. I'm your co-host Alec, and joining me is Andy Danish. Welcome back, Andy.
Thanks for having me. Fun times as always.
Yeah, man. No, you've been on a lot this month. I really appreciate the help, and all of these movies were your suggestions. So this one, I have so many questions up top, but right at the top, why did you choose this one?
I mean, this franchise overall, even though it definitely has its weaker entries, there's always interesting little tidbits and details about each movie in the franchise that make you kind of pause and investigate or dig a little deeper. Like with Leatherface, for example, like it is considered a pretty weak entry in the franchise, but if you dig into it a little bit, there's like little tidbits that are kind of interest. Like, for example, Kane Hodder, who plays Jason in the Friday the 13th movies, he was the stunt coordinator for this particular entry.
Okay.
And in the trailer for this movie, he actually played Leatherface as well.
Oh,
In the like cheesy trailer where they're kind of trying to spoof Excalibur with the chainsaw.
I love that. I love that trailer.
But yeah, it's Kane Hodder who's playing Leatherface in that trailer, though.
Oh, I didn't know that. That's cool. Yeah, no, this movie is interesting, but I'm curious. Yeah, so like, why did you choose it?
I mean, I know we were going through Texas Chainsaw Massacre movies that we were wanting to talk about, and we were and I'm sure since it's a popular franchise to discuss, I'm like, what's one that you guys might not have talked about? And I'm
Mm-hmm.
like, probably this one.
Right. No, yeah, you're right. I'm trying to think. We've definitely covered the first two. We covered the 2022 version and also the remake. So we haven't done the Matthew McConaughey one. We haven't done the prequel to the remake. We haven't done the Leatherface origin story one from 2017. So there's quite a few we haven't done, but I'm glad we're going more into order because even though this is called part three, I don't know how much of a connection this really has to part one and two. So my second question for you though was, what is your relationship with this franchise?
Texas Chainsaw Massacre, the first one and the second one, and then the Matthew McConaughey one, ironically, were ones that kind of were usually at some point airing on late night cable TV at one point or another. If I'd be up like late, either in when I was in high school or in college, and they'd just be on. So I'm like, just put it on because the only thing I'm like, there's nothing else good to watch on TV. Let's just put these on as like background noise or something to just zone out to.
Yeah.
And then like later on, it just they're movies that kind of just became, I don't know, I became endeared to. And then ironically enough, even though the Matthew McConaughey one, the next generation is also considered pretty terrible. It's also one that I like watched often enough to just kind of be like, yeah, it's not so bad.
Yeah, I definitely saw that one a while ago. I think this is the first time I've seen this one, though. I don't remember Viggo Mortensen ever being in Texas Chainsaw Massacre, so I was like, oh. But I did cover the second one a few months ago, and I love the first one. I think the first one's like literally a masterpiece. It's one of the best horror movies ever made, stands the test of time, does so much with so little, and there's like no gore. It's incredible. Second one, very cool. Comedic departure, same director, same writer, updates it from the 70s to the 80s, definitely has a more comedic tone, but also carries on the characters in a believable way, introduces new cool characters like Chop Top. And then this one, it comes out 4 years later. I think the second one, people are like, cool, I'm into this. I'm down. And at this point in 1990, Nightmare on Elm Street and Friday the 13th were really starting to wind down. So I think people were like, okay, we don't really have a lot of Texas Chainsaw Massacre movies. Let's see where this series can go. And it definitely went back to more of the slashery roots. But I just don't like how they kind of forgot the previous two and they don't really expand on Leatherface that much, even though the movie's called Leatherface. But that's just my 2 cents, I guess, overall.
I agree with that. And I think the more interesting facets are kind of the behind the scenes or production, stories of it. Like, for example, the fact it was originally produced by Canon Films and then
Mm.
bought by New Line. And yeah, New Line had like Nightmare on Elm Street, for example. And like, this is one of those movies where you could tell that they wanted to try to, yeah, like you said, copy the slasher franchise, but also almost directly emulate a couple of the franchise's movies. Like, for example, the opening scene of Texas Chainsaw Massacre 3 is more or less them mimicking the intro to the original Nightmare on Elm Street. Because in the original Nightmare on Elm Street, they show the intro as Freddy kind of like creating the glove with the tools and like building it. And in the intro to Texas Chainsaw Massacre 3, it's like Leatherface like cutting up human skin, making the mask and kind of crafting it, kind of like with a similar shot where they just show his hands like cutting the leather and like doing the craft work to
Mm,
make his face. And so I looked at that. I'm like, immediately I thought that's kind of the same type of setup that Nightmare on Elm Street did.
it's true.
And yeah, like you said, it was trying to kind of piggyback off of the slasher craze. And I think this movie disappoints on a lot of levels because there was a lot they couldn't do because they cut the budget to it by a lot.
Hmm.
So you don't really see the kills. Like you don't
Yeah.
see, even though like in the original movie, it was like, oh, you don't see any gore. In this one, it wasn't because it was on purpose. It was because they didn't have the budget to do it.
I heard the MPAA cut it a lot too. It was going to give it an X rating.
Yeah. There are certain scenes where like Leatherface starts to take his chainsaw and like penetrate one of his victims into the tree. And as soon as he starts to do it, the camera automatically cuts away. It
Mm.
automatically, before there's like any skin piercing, automatically it just like shows him like reverberating from the chainsaw, but they cut away from the actual wound itself. And they do this a few times with a lot of the kills he makes. Like whenever he like cuts Ken Foray's head or tries to cut Ken Foray's head towards the end, they cut away from like the actual shot of Ken Foray being cut towards the end. So, and there were all these moments where you expect, oh my God, there's going to be a gruesome kill here. There's going to be an amazing kill here. And throughout the movie, there's just every opportunity that there was to be able to actually do something that was like, you know, what a horror movie should do, they kind of chicken out on it.
Yeah, the one kill that I can think of specifically is when he's killing that random girl who was in the beginning and sees her sister get killed and he cuts her into the tree. It keeps cutting to her face like ah and then cuts back to the other people in the woods and then cuts back to her screaming, cuts back to the woods. So you're like, "Oh yeah, they're not showing like anything." I did hear though part 2 got an X rating. And I think Toby Hooper was like, I'm not cutting anything. So the Canon Films or whatever, they distributed it instead of it getting like a wide release or something like that. But then New Line Cinema bought this, and you know Bob Shea, right? The guy that yeah he produced like all the Nightmare on Elm Street movies. I think he started New Line Cinema, but I'm thinking because Nightmare on Elm Street ended in '91, that's when they were planning on it ending. He's like, sweet, so that'll end. This will start, and we'll go from there. The MPAA was like, hey, we're giving you an X rating. And instead of them holding on to it like Toby Hooper did, Bob Shea was like, this is my new baby. I need to make money on this. We're going to do whatever the MPAA says. And they cut a lot of that out. And there is an unrated version that came out. It's 4 minutes longer. So I don't know which one you saw, but mine was pretty tame. So I don't think it was the unrated version.
I think I saw the rated version too. I don't think I saw the unrated version. I actually, yeah, because I actually do remember seeing streaming options where it's like one's like literally, like you said, 4 minutes. One's an hour and 21 minutes, and the other is like an hour and 25 minutes. So I'm
Hmm.
like, oh, the hour and 25-minute one was probably the unrated one.
Yep, I saw that too.
Yeah, and like you were saying, they call it Leatherface, and you assume, oh, they're gonna go into Leatherface a little bit more, do some character development,
Right.
and they do like minimal things with it. Like, for example, he has an actual Walkman that he listens to for like music, and it's showcasing, look, I love this music. This gets me going. And like they're showing how vulnerable he is. It's like, oh, he's like a child because he has to have his headphones on all the time.
Hmm.
Or in that other scene where he puts his chainsaw down and he starts playing with the spelling machine, like the learning the spell the word machine. And
Hmm.
so there's a picture, digital picture of a clown on it, and there's four spaces, and he types in FOOD. He's constantly
Yeah.
spelling out food, and it keeps saying wrong. And he keeps spelling it out over and over, though. Like
Yeah.
he doesn't change, and he's getting frustrated, like, but he doesn't like change his answer at all. And so they're saying, oh, he like has a learning disability, or he has mental issues, mental development issues. And they're doing little things you can tell to kind of try to give you some what's the word, empathy for him.
Oh yeah.
I do think though that the chainsaw, the gold and silver chainsaw, was really cool looking though.
Oh yeah. Very cool. Yeah, I mean, the thing about Leatherface is like he's the only through line throughout the whole series, and he's the only like scary looking character. So he like, stands out. So in this movie, I wanted more than just kind of like little jokey things about like, oh, he can't spell and all this stuff. The only thing that I can think that they actually added to his character, which is scummy and gross, is that he has a daughter. The blonde girl's his little kid.
Yeah, yeah.
And they're implying that, yeah, he like makes the best babies or whatever. You're like, ugh. So I've always, in a weird way, had empathy for him because of the way that his parents or his father and brothers treated him and stuff like that. And he seems like he's, a victim of his circumstance as opposed to like somebody that might have done this if they weren't raised where they were. So I don't know. He's the only one that seems like he doesn't want to be doing what he's doing. At least from the second one, he really like loves that one girl, Stretch or whatever.
Oh, speaking of Caroline Williams, the actress, she makes a brief cameo
Hmm.
in the third one. She plays the news reporter at the very opening that comes out and like has a microphone when they find the bodies on the side of
Yeah.
the highway.
Dude, what the fuck? Why is she not in this movie? Like, what are they doing? They had her. She could have came in at the end and saved the day. Like anything. That was so dumb they didn't bring her back for more.
I agree. I think they could have easily built off of her state of craziness that she had by the end of the second one, where she's swinging the chainsaw around and got as crazy as them in order to like kill off Chop Top.
Yeah.
So all of a sudden, you could have her do a dueling chainsaw battle with Leatherface with her own chainsaw, the same way Dennis Hopper and Leatherface did their own chainsaw duel. That would be a consistent thing.
I am so pissed off that they like tease us with her. They're like, "Oh yeah, here she is," and then all of a sudden they're like, "Never again," and it makes no sense. I hate that. That's why it pisses me off. This is part three because there's no continuation. I don't know if you remember how part two ends, but dude, there's like a grenade that goes off where Leatherface is and where the father is, and then they kill Chop Top at the thing. So everybody dies. But then in this one, everybody's fine. Well, I guess the father's dead, but Leatherface just has like a leg brace on, and that's it. But let me ask you this. I was thinking about this while I was watching it. I feel like the Sawyer family is big. Like they are like 30 plus deep and they're all throughout Texas. And it's not just Leatherface, the dad, like that little family from the first one. It's like a lot of them. And I think that Leatherface is kind of going from family to family, being like, they killed dad or whatever. And that's like his mom is there. Maybe the parents got divorced and he lived with the dad, whatever. But I think the first two movies and then this one, they are connected, but it's just only connection as Leatherface.
Um, I think you're giving them too much credit, but
Yeah, you're probably
um,
right. I love looking for stuff like this, though. You're probably right.
no, I mean that's a feasible theory. I'll support that. It's support because they are backwoods hicks, and maybe they all slept at each other's brothers or cousins and just made more of them, and just sort of like slept with each other, moved along, and kind of just infested the state of Texas.
Yep.
And so it's like every person in Texas is related to each other, and so Leatherface has a whole bunch of cousins he can go to.
I'm not going that far, but I think there's like, there might be like the cousins or whatever, and they are also killers. And because like, who's the mom? Who the hell is this lady? She wasn't in any of the other ones. Who's this little girl? I mean, it's only been 4 years since the second one's. Well, I guess that little girl is probably about six. I don't know, but doesn't matter. You're right. I'm thinking way too deep into it.
I mean, it's feasible. I'll back you up on it. I won't say you're wrong.
Yeah, no, I mean, I like connecting all of the movies, I've got this crazy one about Halloween. I won't get into it, but so the plot is there's really not that much of a plot. It's kind of like this couple's driving from California to Florida. They're about to break up. They're driving in a cool Mercedes and they get to a gas station.
They meet Viggo Mortensen and they meet the cousin who's the crazy guy who he takes a Polaroid, he tries to sell him the Polaroid, and they get into a little skirmish with the crazy guy who's running the gas station. But then Viggo Mortensen comes in and he pretends like he's the straight man and he's the hero and he's going to look out for them. Crazy man at the gas station is about to attack the couple, shoot them, and Vigo kind of pretends to say, "Hey, take this secret route so that way you can lose them and get away from him." And so they take the road, they get lost, and they get attacked when they're on the side roads. And Leatherface finds them, and then they get lost in the woods and end up again being chased down by the crazy family. The like the same Texas Chainsaw Massacre movie structure that all the other structures have, where it's like random folks on a road trip come across these crazy yokels get them to the house, start killing them off one by one. They have a dinner scene, and then the final girl or the final person just escapes. So it's basically like a Texas Chainsaw movie structure.
Yeah.
Like it has its own story structure.
Barely. Barely.
Barely.
I mean, it's the only thing that's different is like instead of friends, it's a couple, I guess. I mean, I think the second one had a lot of development with like this guy hunting the family, and then she's a reporter that gets like that. I liked this couple that's like they don't like each other, and then they like get in a car crash, and then they like take drugs and pass out. Like I'm like, who the fuck? Fuck this. The guy Ken Foree is definitely the cool character. You know, he's this like survivalist or whatever, and he crashes. He they have a car crash with him. And here's the thing, man. I mean, call me crazy, but I don't think anybody's surviving that fucking Mercedes falling down that hill like that. That's not a safe car. And I don't think they have their seatbelts on because they're like running. So they're dead. There's no way they're not dead.
Yeah. Well, you know, Ken Foree is badass, so he obviously has to survive because
He's fine. Yeah.
he's totally fine. Although I will say I couldn't tell when they kill the boyfriend. Like they kill him in the woods and then they drag him back into the house and they like hang him up by the chains with intention to like gut him and whatnot. They
Yeah.
keep cutting to his face and his eyes, and I also couldn't tell. I'm like, wait a minute, are his eyes blinking? Are they trying to imply that he might be still alive and they're gonna
Mm.
gut him while he's still alive? I couldn't tell if it's like, are they trying to imply that he's dead or that he might be alive or like barely alive? So I wasn't sure about that.
Oh, dude, no, he's definitely alive. They say like, you know, they're like, oh, this one's still kicking, and then he makes fun of him for making fun of him earlier. He's just like, yeehaw, cowboy, or something like that.
I missed that.
And he says, Twitch, if you need anything, just give us a Twitch. He says that to him. And that's the thing, I hate that about these movies, dude. They always do shit like this. I don't like the you think a character's dead and then they're just brought back to suffer even more. I hate that kind of stuff. And that was this for sure. Because you're right, in the woods, it looks like he gets killed for sure. But he doesn't. He gets brought back. And then they like shove like fish hooks or not fish hooks, but like meat hooks into his legs and have him hanging by that. There's no way. There's no way. You're dead. There's no way.
Mm-mm, mm-mm.
But really quick, even back farther to what you're saying at the gas station, dude, this is what I also wasn't crazy about. When Viggo Mortensen's there, he's trying to get a ride with them. He's trying to hitchhike with them. And I'm sure once he gets in
Mm-hmm.
the car, then he would be
Yep.
like, oh, y'all should take this road here, whatever. But he is saying to them, and especially the guy who's already hesitant because he's like, you're way hotter than me. My girlfriend definitely wants to bang you. But he's just like, hey, listen, I don't trust you. And the guy's like, get your map. I'll show you, a shortcut or whatever. And the guy's like, I don't fucking care, man. Like, stop. Like, sure, fine. And he takes it out. This is what I hate. The guy doesn't want the directions, but he takes them just to like, shut Vigo up. Vigo wants to have them go on this road so that they can capture them or whatever. Why would you, in that moment of panic, take the route that you don't even want in the first place?
I was thinking that too.
Yeah, I'm like, dude, you don't trust this guy. And now this happens, and you're like, okay, now I immediately trust this guy, and I'm going to do this. Like, no, dude, go straight, and you'll probably find a police station a lot quicker than just going down this road that this random guy told you about that's not even on the map.
Yeah.
But again, we wouldn't have a horror movie if not. So,
I agree. I'm like, just go as fast as you possible. Straight shot. You
right.
know exactly where you're going. And yeah, I agree. I was thinking that too. And I'm just like, why are they going down that road? That doesn't make any sense. They don't know where they're going, and that takes them completely off track of
Right.
where they know they need to go. So that doesn't make any sense.
And really quick, before that, I just want to ask you if you notice this or if I'm crazy. They hit an armadillo before any of this,
Yeah.
and it's really sad. It's a cute armadillo. It looks like a little piggy.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
here's the thing. Did that thing have the same like earring as that guy at the end? Like
Hmm.
the older brother guy, not Viggo Mortensen, but the guy that like, he gets like his ear
Yeah.
shot off. Dude, the armadillo looked like it had this little like amulet on it, and then I'm pretty sure it was the same earring as the guy was wearing when his ear got blown off. But
I didn't notice that.
okay, yeah, I might be
That's
crazy.
good attention to detail. Clearly, I wasn't paying enough attention.
That's my job, quality control. Uh, anyways, okay, so I'm sorry, I cut you off. What were you saying?
I was also going to say, though, that my other thought as far as how this movie borrows from other more popular franchises as far as implementing little details in the scene in the gas station where the crazy guy peers through the hole he made to see into the bathroom, the customer bathroom, when the girl is using the bathroom. They
Hmm.
do the exact same shot that they do in Psycho when Norman Bates removes the picture frame so he can see into the motel room where Janet Leigh is staying. But it's like the
Oh.
exact same close up eye shot where it's like eyes darting around, there's an eye on it. So I look at that shot, I'm like, that's the Norman Bates Psycho camera shot right there.
Mm.
Yeah, but like go watch Psycho, watch that scene where Norman Bates is waiting for Janet Leigh to go into her motel room and he's sitting there and then all of a sudden he takes the picture frame off and there's like a big chunk of wall missing and there's like the little eye hole there and he peers through it and they have a camera shot that's directly close up on his eye. It's a very distinct shot. And then they basically emulate that shot in this movie where the crazy guy's in the gas station and he's looking through like a chunk of wall that's taken out so he can peer into the customer bathroom.
Mm.
So that was like a second example where I'm thinking, okay, similar to like the opening of this movie where they have Leatherface kind of cutting up some skin and making a mask, where they have the same type of shots where they're doing camera shots of the hands crafting the mask has a similar shot of like the opening of Nightmare on Elm Street where they do a shot of just the hands building the glove.
Hmm.
So I'm just keeping myself, man, they're really just borrowing from more successful franchises for this particular movie.
For sure.
And also having Ken Foray involved because of Dawn of the Dead, got to
Oh
have
yeah.
somebody else who's kind of given this movie more credibility. But I was
Yeah.
also thinking to myself during that whole scene where they're like running around the woods and going through the traps and, they're fighting each other like they're in the marsh. I just kept thinking to myself, these shots are way too dark. Like it's
Yeah.
so hard to see everything in these shots.
And that's like 40 minutes of the movie, pretty much.
Yeah. So I like it's just not very well lit.
No, no, it's really not. I mean, yeah, once they crash the car and Ken Foray kind of like takes over as the lead for a little while our whatever two leads are passed out from the painkillers that he gave them, and they're just like, yeah, sure, I'll just take these, whatever. What who are you? Fuck it, I don't care. So they pass out from painkillers, and then Ken Foray is walking through the forest, and yeah, the whole you're right, it's like super dark. And then we meet that one girl from the beginning which, dude, is like the most useless character to introduce. Like, why? She just comes out, Ken Foray and her have a little like, who are you? Oh, let me protect you or whatever. Leatherface fights with Ken Foray for a while. Ken Foray gives him a run for his money, too. They get some good. And then the girl saves him when Leatherface is gonna kill him. But then the girl just gets killed. So
Hmm.
I don't know. I mean, it's just kind of who are you? How she's like, I ate a raw rat. I've been living out here forever. I don't have food, but I still have cigarettes. Oh, I know why she's in it to give Ken Foray the lighter.
Yeah.
Fuck it. He could have just had a lighter in his pocket. He didn't need this whole thing. Whatever.
I agree. And it's true. It could have been a convenience thing, but at the same time, maybe they're trying to pull a trick of saying, hey, they tried to have a similar structure to like a point and click adventure where it's like, you have to talk to this person to get this item to use this item for this future item. Otherwise, you can't complete the game.
Yeah. Seems like that.
Maybe a similar structure to that, but maybe she was supposed to be used as somebody who was sort of like a survivor to indicate that there's a messed up family out there, similar to what they kind of tried to do in the Texas Chainsaw Massacre remake, the one with Jessica
Uh,
Biel, sort of just saying like,
yeah. At the beginning. Yeah.
yeah, where they have a survivor out there where it's like She's like an omen almost. So maybe that's what they were trying to do with her.
Let me say this then. If you're, I mean, that's probably 100% accurate. It's just like a carryover from a movie that never existed. But that literally means that every single time the Sawyers do this, somebody gets away. Because it's every time that we see it, somebody got away. And then in the remake, there's a girl in the beginning that got away. And this one, there's a girl that got away from a previous movie. You're like, wait, these guys are pretty bad at their job, you know?
They're not very good at what they're doing.
I
They're
mean,
bad. They're bad cannibals.
yeah. So speaking of the cannibals, we get a whole new cast of them in this one. Nobody's back except for Leatherface. We get like a chop top wannabe guy who's got no arm and he's got like a little fake arm, robot arm kind of.
Yeah.
We get a little blonde girl who's I guess Leatherface's daughter, which is gross, but okay.
Meh.
Then we get Viggo Mortensen, who's like the best looking cannibal who's ever lived. And then who else do we have? Oh, Mama. We got Mama.
Yeah.
She's in a wheelchair and she's got a smoker's voice box thing. So we got a whole crew. We got a whole crew of people, and they're all cannibals and they're all evil. And the boyfriend's dead. Ken Forey's walking through the woods, and now the girl's been captured, the lead female. And classic Texas Chainsaw Massacre. They bring her for dinner. Oh, we have Grandpa too. He's a corpse though.
That's right. It actually looks like a mannequin, though.
Yeah, it looks horrible. But he's dead at least. So we know this now because he's alive in the first two. He's like, he's 137 years old. It's like, what? What? But so he's dead now. And yeah, and it's just gross. They kill the boyfriend in front of her and have a little back and forth and go wash up for supper. It's like, Jesus Christ. They say it like 6 times in the movie. And then yeah, you already kind of talked about the Leatherface speak and spell scene, and that's when Ken Foray kind of comes back and does his whole thing, but it's a little anticlimactic. I mean, compared to the second one, like Dustin Hoffman walks in like, boys, boys, boys. And he's got his chainsaw, he's cutting down their whole house.
Dustin Hoffman would not do a Texas Chainsaw Massacre movie.
I'm sorry. You'd be surprised Dennis Hopper did though, kind of too, right?
It's true. I think he always complained that it was like the worst experience he had, other than the Mario Brothers movie.
Right. That's a horrible movie. But I gotta say, like, I feel like Dustin Hoffman and Dustin Jesus
Dennis
Hopper.
Hopper.
Dennis Hopper and Dustin Hoffman I feel like they're like in the same league-ish.
Oh, they are absolutely, because they both come from like the same 70s and late 60s coming up period as far as
Right.
like their careers concerned. They came up the same time as like Jack Nicholson came up, and
Yeah.
like Al Pacino came up, and Robert De Niro came up.
Yeah.
So yeah, they are definitely in the same league. I guess I just mean in terms of like, I don't know, choices, but
Yeah, you're right. No, Dustin Hoffman's definitely he's a better actor, I feel like. But hey, I saw Meet the Fuckers, so um okay, so wait, Jesus, how do we even get there? So we oh yeah, yeah. So the ending with Dustin Hoff, Jesus. Oh my God, Dennis Hopper. Dennis Hopper coming in. That was badass as hell with him with the double chainsaw, like boys, 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 let's go. This one's just kind of Ken Foray outside shooting and he fucking blows everybody away with like an M16, you know? It was cool, but a
yeah,
little.
and
I want him to kick the door in and then be like, "What the fuck?" And he just, you know.
yeah, I agree. And I think that would definitely have made up for the misgivings from earlier in the movies, or the things we didn't see earlier in the movie. I think that definitely would have redeemed it a little bit. Yeah, I would have loved to have seen that too, instead of just lighting Viggo Mortensen on fire,
Mm,
like just doing your traditional Burning Man type of move, where it's just like they have your traditional stunt double who's trained to be on fire in a movie, in every movie, because almost every movie where they have that, they have a guy who's running on fire. So they have their stunt guys who are the fire guys. So they just had a fire guy scene, be like, what do we do here? Let's just put them on fire. Fire guys are cheap to hire.
I did like though, because it looked like the fire guy. Yeah, he was on fire, but the car blew up at the same time too. So I was like, that's kind of that, because especially in 1990, like there's no CGIs here. Like they're lucky they got that shot, and like something didn't go wrong. But yeah, it is still like eh. But yeah, so they light Viggo Mortensen on fire. The mom dies. The grandpa, he was already dead. He gets shot. The other brother gets his ear blown off, his fingers blown off, and then
Yeah.
and then Vigo chases down Ken Forey. They get in the fight. He lights on fire, and then Leatherface comes out, and they have their final battle. And dude, that final battle kind of sucked. Like I couldn't even see what was going on. They're fighting in the swamp, and I'm like, I have no clue who is who right now.
Yeah, they were trying to imply that like Leatherface got drowned and then comes back at the tail end when Ken Foray and the girl drive away, and then you see the leg brace pull up, even though you're technically supposed to see that he was defeated and killed by being drowned in the bog. By the way, that scene where Leatherface is supposed to be drowned, I did not believe Leatherface drowned.
No.
I feel like it looked like more like he was just going underwater to like hold his breath or something. Like he's struggling, he's in the water. Ken Foray has his head, and he's just struggling, but then he just like floats there for a hot second, and then goes down on his own. It doesn't look like he's actually being pushed down. And he's like, "Hey, you want to see how long I can hold my breath for?"
Yeah, and then he comes out, and then the girl, with a rock, I think, she just smashes his head repeatedly. And what is her line though? She says the cheesiest kill line. What is it? Oh,
I don't remember.
fuck, it's gonna kill me. But anyways, yeah, it's a very cheesy, like "Mommy's not home" or something like that. Like it doesn't even make sense for the movie. And
Well, I guess that scene is her character arc, where she goes from not being able to put an armadillo out of its misery to putting a crazy chainsaw wielding hillbilly hick out of its misery.
it's I love that.
Her arc has been completed. She had levels and trajectory as a character. She wasn't a one note character. She goes from not being able to put something out of its misery to being able to put something out of its misery.
Dude, you're not wrong, but I really want to do like a deep dive on this movie now because like I think you and I are putting so much more credit to this movie than you're probably not wrong, but I wonder if the writer and director thought that. They're like, listen, it all comes full circle. She couldn't do it, and now she has to survive. Like it's just
Be like, wait a minute, there's good acting here. We may have been butchered, but we're going to stake the quality of this movie on her acting
yeah.
because this is her first time. We're going to give her the opportunity to show her chops. We're going to show the audience that this is her classic character, the classic character and the eternal struggle of not being able to kill the roadkill.
Oh my God.
And then she'll be on Inside the Actor's Studio with James Lipton telling her about the character arc of going from not killing an armadillo to killing Leatherface with a rock.
Well, it doesn't end there though. It doesn't end there. She does beat Leatherface with a rock and she escapes because she thinks Ken Foray and Leatherface are dead. But then the next day she's walking and all of a sudden Ken Foray pulls up in a truck and it's the same gas truck. She's like, "Oh my God, now he's back." But it's Ken Foray. And they get in the car, but then the guy that from the beginning who's peeping on her, who we thought Ken Foray killed because he smashed him in the head with a gun, he fell into the lake, but he didn't die. He comes back and then, yeah, she takes a shotgun and blows him away. Oh, wait, I think that was where she says it. It's like, "Do you
Yeah,
know how to use this thing?" It's just like, "Sure do," or something like that. But yeah, yeah.
I was gonna say at least it's not as bad as the line in Texas Chainsaw, the later sequel where the one girl goes, "Welcome to Texas, motherfucker," or
Yeah.
the other one where the girl gives Leatherface the chainsaw and be like, "Do your thing, cuz,"
Oh, I remember that. I remember that. Do your thing, cuz.
because there's some bad dialogue in this franchise.
I
There's some
know.
pretty awful dialogue.
It's funny though because like I remember when the 2003 one came out, it kind of was like got mixed reviews, and then I feel like people turned on it, and now that one's like one of the better ones compared to like a lot of the stuff that's come out. Like, dude, I did not like the Netflix one.
Ugh.
This one, like, it still feels like an old Texas Chainsaw Massacre movie, and it's not horrible. It's not like terrible, but I think this is a big decline from the first two.
Oh, it absolutely is because it is definitely does have a bad mark because of the fact that it was so much lower in quality than the ones that came before it. But I think as far as dialogue is concerned, it doesn't have the cringier dialogue of some of the later sequels, though.
You're right.
Like the Netflix one, for example, where they're in the bus and the dude holds up the phone. He's like, "Dude, try anything and you're canceled."
I
And I'm like,
know.
oh, that's Gen Z cancel culture. They're making fun of cancel culture,
I
where it's like,
know.
oh, cancel culture isn't going to cancel Leatherface. Rah.
Yeah, it's like the first one is like, "Oh, let's talk about the hippies." The second one's like, "Let's talk about the yuppies of the 80s." And then this one, yeah, it's like the Gen Z fucking TikToker kids, but bleh. Well, Andy, thank you very much for joining me for this ride on Texas Chainsaw Massacre Part 3. Really appreciate you coming on.
Thanks for having me. This was fun.
Yeah, man. And everybody, we will see you tomorrow with something, but Andy, we'll see you very soon with something else too.
Absolutely, man. Be well.
All right, you too. Thanks everybody for listening in, and we'll see you tomorrow with something.